varying between 500 feet to 500 yards above the ground, going at an incredible speed. And finally I come to this large river. I see this city on the other side. I let down just in front of this white all-night cafe because I saw this civilian getting ready to go into the cafe, because I want to ask him if I'm heading in the right direction to get to Richmond.
What city is this? Excuse me, sir. You can just tell me what city this is? I'd really appreciate it. I was on my way to Richmond, and I seem to have gotten lost. Please.
This was the second time that another human being acted like they could neither hear nor see me. So I went over to lean against the guy wire of a telephone post, and my hand goes through the guy wire of the telephone post. Then it suddenly hit me that I had left something back there in that bed in Berkeley, and I knew, because I was still using massive denial, that I'd better go back and get it. And I made the next, or the first most important discovery about being outside of your body. That you really go where your soul sincere desires. That time and space as you and I comprehended in this level doesn't exist, because in no time at all, I was right back there in the front of the hospital. But I had made a very tragic mistake. I hadn't looked to see which ward I'd come out of, much less which room. I could see the soldiers lying there in the bed. And we take for granted we know what we look like, but we don't, because you see, we really have never seen ourselves from here up, except in the two-dimensional object we know as a mirror. And I saw a lot of soldiers that looked like me, but none of them had my fraternity ring on the finger. And I'm going through from ward to ward, room to room, trying to find me, and becoming more desperate. Finally went into this little isolation room, and lying over in the bed with the sheet pulled up over its head was this body. I realized it was me because I recognized my fraternity ring, and it even had a chip on the black onyx because it was a Phi Gamma fraternity ring, and there wasn't any mistaking. And I am utterly petrified. My massive denial has broken down. I suddenly realize that that body is dead. And I'm too young to die. I'm only 20 years of age. And then all of a sudden I thought the light at the head end of the room was getting brighter, but it was growing in an intensity of light to where if you turned on 1,000,000 welders' lights, you'd have some idea of the intensity. Three things happened at the exact same moment. Something deep inside of my spiritual being, not the corpse lying over in the bed, said, "Stand up, you're in the presence of the Son of God." At that exact same instant, out of this brilliant light stepped the most amazing being I have ever met, and those hospital walls virtually disappeared. I saw every single minute detail of my life, everything I had ever done in public, in private, from seeing my own cesarean section birth to my 20th year when I was pronounced dead. And he threw a question, what had I done with my life? And I thought, well, I'm an Eagle Scout. Immediately he shot back, that glorified you. And the same question again, what have you done with your life? Now over there in that realm, there is no such thing as hypocrisy, because one of the first things that you become aware of is that the other being is totally aware of what you think, so you can't think one thing and say another. There's no such thing as misunderstanding what he meant. And yet, here was a being that knew everything about me, and he totally accepted me and he totally loved me. Now that blew my mind. The next thing that took place was that the Christ motioned for me to come over close to him. Now you can well imagine by this time I really do think that I've seen everything, but I'm finding out this is just the beginning, because suddenly he's opening up another realm to me. Now I wanted to stay there, but then I suddenly realized that the Christ was pulling me away and that we were heading back into this isolated room in Camp Barclay Station Hospital outside of Abilene, Texas.
Private George Ritchie's death was confirmed by Dr. Donald G. Francie, captain in charge during the time of these events. Dr. Ritchie's book, My Life After Dying, contains the elaborate account of the various realms of the afterlife that he claims to have experienced. It is a detailed look at one man's encounter with death and what he believes lies beyond.
According to Gallup, 16% of polled scientists believe in a life after death. This is a severe contrast to the 67% of the general public who say life after death is fact. But what if none of the proposed medical or scientific explanations for the near-death experience can fully account for it? Dr. Michael B. Sabin began his research of these experiences as a skeptic. Recollections of Death, a medical investigation, was Dr. Sabin's scientific quest to explore near-death experiences. His final conclusion, revealing the hesitancy of science to fully account for the whole of the human experience. Dr. Sabin goes on to quote Albert Einstein, "Everyone who is seriously involved in the pursuit of science becomes convinced that a spirit is manifest in the laws of the universe, a spirit vastly superior to that of man, and one in the face of which we, with our modest powers, must feel humble." Medical technology is ever increasing the human lifespan. Death is considered the enemy. But when it comes to the definition of life, some patients and physicians are leaving medical advancements behind and making a decision for themselves. According to Gallup polls, merely existing on machine-generated body functions is not enough of a purpose for some to continue living. Is death an option? When? And who decides this? Many complex questions are raised, and scientific explanations seem to provide only part of an answer. Religion without science is blind. Science without religion is lame. Albert Einstein. Both science and religion seek for ultimate truth, but search for it in opposing ways. At least it appears that way. The many religions of the world present their own version of the afterlife and how to get to paradise. Images suggesting heaven are easily seen in the numerous accounts of each death experience. A place of indescribable beauty, feelings of peace and overwhelming love, angels, a being of light, perhaps God. But what about the counterpart to heaven? What about hell? The eternal place of torment? There's some sort of hell mentioned in nearly every major religion of the world. A place of punishment beyond the grave reserved for evildoers. Dr. Moody claims that a hellish death experience is extremely rare. Does this loosen religion's hold on mankind? Or is the research incomplete? Dr. Maurice Rawlins has found that there are as many hellish experiences as pleasant ones. Unlike most researchers in this field, Dr. Rawlins has been present during the death and resuscitation, seeing firsthand what the patient experienced. It was during one such incident that Dr. Rawlins dealt with both science and religion, the body and spirit, heaven and hell.
I became interested in afterlife experiences when I ran across a hell case. I was testing a patient with chest pain to see whether it was heart origin or not. So we hook him up to the treadmill, the EKG, while he's racing on the treadmill to get the heart rate up to levels that will exacerbate the pain, bring it on, and we'll record it while he's having the pain. If the EKG goes haywire, that's heart every time. But contrary to the average patient, this fellow drops dead while we're exercising. Everybody knew their job. The nurse started ambu bag in mouth to mouth to start breathing. His heart had stopped, his breathing had stopped. Now he's doing the external heart massage. But he was dead, and he unfortunately had a heart block. I'd reach for instruments and his eyes would roll up. He'd sputter, turn blue, stop breathing, heart stopped beating again. I'd start him up again. Half the people will come back and that you try it on. Sudden deaths. He'd convulse a little bit. He'd say, "Doctor, I'm in hell." That's nice. Don't bother me with it. I'm a doctor. "Doctor, you don't understand." And then I'd let go and his eyes would roll out. Up into his head, it'd sputter, turn blue, stop beating again. And the nurses look at me and say, "You better do something. The dying man's wish. What would you do?" He said, "Doctor, pray for me. Keep me out of hell. Do something."